Hey everybody, welcome to another Puremix Live. We are here today with the one and only John Paterno. How's it going, John?
Hello, Mark. Great to see you.
Doing good?
Happy New Year.
Oh, I have lost you in my ear, but so we're gonna start this off. I'm just gonna explain kind of what's gonna happen here, and then we'll go from there. So yeah, today we are starting John's review on Mixtank, and he's going to be going through all of your mixes that are submitted there. If you guys want to follow along with him, you can go to click on Mixtank up in the top menu bar, and then you'll see a player with a bunch of different mixes, and John is going to be playing through them and then talking about them as we go. So instead of John typing on the screen the whole time, and us kind of watching him type, he's instead going to stop after the track and give his comments to the camera just verbally. And then if your mix is one of the ones that he's reviewed, he's going to drop a comment that says with the YouTube link to this live stream. So if you're watching this after the fact and you want to hear John's comments on your mix, you can go there. So cool. Sound good, John?
It all makes sense to me. Excellent.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, I am going to pop off screen here and we'll let you take it away.
All right. Thank you,
All right.
Mark.
So here we go. Have fun.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you for all your submissions as well. I am checking out. I've gone down a little bit. I hope to get to all. I've come across this one that's inspired by Los Lobos, so I feel like that's as good a spot to start as any. So I'm just going to hit play. I don't know that I'll get through all the songs. I'll probably listen to a bit and spot listen, just simple. But yeah, here we go.
When I love you, you did me wrong. Means I'm home. Loving you all day long. Too late to say sorry. And to be mine. Baby, you betrayed me. Did me wrong, You gonna miss me. You gonna miss me. Day that I'm gone. I'm gone, baby. Like a turkey to the
All right. So Studio D Lou, thank you for your submission. I love. I was involved with the Los Lobos Colossal Head record, so I totally get the where you're coming from with this. Um, the way it starts off is great. I think the kick drum sounds great. The initial drum thing is great. Once the band comes in, though, it starts feeling a bit kind of pinched and all in one area. And I find people do this when they start rolling off a lot of low end on things and they're trying to just make space that way. And I think between that and the compression you're doing on things, you might be doing yourself a little disservice because you're sacrificing the depth by just trying to get things to just pile on top of each other. So I would look at this in a way that always keeps that depth in mind. It seems like as the more things come in, the more compression you're getting as well on the overall mix and or limiting. So it's kind of skewing the imaging a bit, and it's skewing the relationships. My favorite parts are actually the lower parts where things are breathing a little bit more. The sax sound is a bit thin, like the solo in particular. And again, it just seems like there's some high passing going on, that, you know, I would dial that back and just try and think about the roundness of the tone, because that's what makes those Los Lobos records, especially Colossal Head in general. You know, it's funky, it's dark, it's got some thickness to it. And I could see where you were going for with this, but I would just really think about trying to layer it a little bit more. Let me see if there's any other thoughts here. Let me just listen in one other area. Spot with the vocal.
To say sorry and to be mine. Baby, you betrayed me.
The other thing I would look at is the bass. I mean, it seems like the bass could be louder, it could have more weight to it, and the record could feel like it has a bit more bottom or a bit more of a pear shape to it. So so that's my 2 cents. I wish you a lot of luck with it and keep working it. Maybe don't go as quick to mastering. I think you said this was a mastered version. You know, keep working it a bit more until you really feel like you're getting the thing to pop before you take that last step. All right. So Paterno was here on this one. And let's move on to the next one on our list, which is If You Don't Reach Me in Time by Chaotic Sound at Hotmail. All right, looking over your notes here. Vocal level and tone, general tone and glue. All right, here we go, giving it a listen.
Light up the blaze into the night. I've been lost for days. No help in sight. You can tear this forest down. It will be too late, and you're gonna be brave when you face that day. And I forgive you if you don't reach me in time. My body lays here. You can put me in a casket and walk me down the line. And tell all my family alive it was a pretty good time. Get me with the sands of time. My body rests here for peace of mind.
All right. I really like this one. I think you've done a really great job with it. The mix feels good. It feels together. It feels cohesive. My main thought is the vocal sound. I'm wondering what happens if it just has a little more chest or a little bit more size to make it feel like it's a little bit more forward from the instruments. But man, the guitar sounds really good. The piano sound is good. The ratio between the average level and the peaks, I think, is really good. Yeah, that's the only thing I would look at is literally the vocal tone. The levels all seem like really good. Yeah, bravo, really, really good. So yeah, like 100, maybe 100 on the vocal, and not a lot, just a little bit, just to feel like it's a little bit more the center of the attention, of center of attention. Yeah, no, great job on that one, totally. All right, so now we're gonna move on to Remember How by Gwen Shana. All right, looking over your notes here. And here we go. Actually, did I get my Paternos here? Yes, I did. Sorry, trying to be efficient. Here we go.
Comfortable we were a long, long time ago. Don't believe it's in battles of your own, of your own. Your lonely eyes follow your only line. Your only line follows your lonely eyes, and I still remember you felt that day. Shadows on your face, winter seeping in. Thoughts of who we were, blowing through the wind. Sober now we are, and I still remember how you left that day. Please take your go somewhere.
All right, lots of great ideas in this one. The vocal sound is really good. It's really cool. I feel like the overall music could be a bit more bright and a bit more open. If you're cooking, almost like adding a little lemon or a little acid to it, just to kind of brighten it up a little bit. It just feels like the vocal, and then everything else feels a little bit subdued and not quite interacting as well as it could. I'm wondering if you kind of amped up the drums a little bit more somehow, maybe a little short reverb or something with a little bit more, giving it just a little bit more, I don't want to say synthetic length, but something that just gives it a little bit more just pop and make them a little bit more of an event. I think that would go a long way. There's drum fill that went by, I think it was at around 115. That felt a little funny, like it just felt kind of out of time. So maybe take a look at that and see if that can be narrowed in and dialed in a little bit more. And then towards the end here, it just seems like you're trying to get some other things louder, and it's at the expense of your basic rhythm instruments. So I feel like the drums and things are starting to go away a little bit at the end because you're trying to pile on a bunch of things on top of it. So keep working it. Keep working to make sure everything is speaking the way you want it to, keeping that low end and keeping the rhythm elements really as a driving force for the entire record. And then have the other things in work in harmony with it as opposed to just pushing more stuff on top of it. So that's what I'm thinking. That's my 2 cents. So I hope this helps and good luck. All right. Now we have a song called I Love Women. And okay, strident sounding mix with too much harshness. All right. Let's see here what we have going on.
Trade a few stories of where we've been and where we're bound. I caught a fish this big. Yeah, I had a woman so fine. Got a cat in 1966. And I got in a fight in a dead little time. Sweet Mother Mary, got me in love. Swear she's an angel sent from above. Praise the Lord, she escaped me. Brother man, you should ask her to dance. Oh my God, she sneaked another peek. Brother man, give her a smile and a wink. Hallelujah, life's sweet. I love women. Let's drink.
I love women. Let's drink. Awesome. Okay. So here's what I'm thinking on this one, KR Bentley. I think you're on to something here, but I think what you really need to think about is kind of amping it up. Everything feels a bit kind of conservative and safe. A song like this, it just seems like it needs to be a bit more just hog wild. Something is going on with the deep low end of your track. So when I hear this with people and with students, I feel like sometimes the speakers might be too wide and it might be messing up with how you're perceiving the low end. That or you're either running a subwoofer and it's kind of loud, or you're mixing kind of loud. Something is kind of obscuring the fact that this low end is just kind of sitting there really deep. And it just feels like it's just not in a musical place. So I would definitely look at that. A mix like this, I would, I don't think you're saying that it's sounding a bit harsh. It doesn't really come across that way to me. I actually think a mix like this could stand to be scuffed up a little bit. Some kind of dirty compression, a kind of dirty delay on the vocal, something that gives it a bit more. And in like the previous mix, it feels like the more things that are coming in, it kind of obscures the bass element.
Hey everybody, sorry we're having some technical difficulties there. I think that we're all set now, so we're gonna give it another shot, and if it's still happening, John, I'll let you know.
All right,
So
no problem.
you were just about to tell us about a special shirt you're wearing.
Oh, right. Okay. So let me, I'll pick up from there. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for all you do. And thanks for taking care of the technical difficulties. You are the rock star of Puremix for sure.
Thanks. Good team. All
Um,
right.
okay. So let's get back to the shirt. Basically, my point was looking at the levels and things like that. I was just trying to say, just, you know, a song like this in particular, let it fly, have fun, do not overthink. And that's going to be our little theme for the day. Just have fun with it, you know, let the thing rock, let it fly. And I think if you're grooving, that'll translate to everybody else. So yeah, just that's my 2 cents. All right, we are gonna move on to our next tune, which is The Best Thing by John Kesko. All right, we got a version 2. More full mix in the mid-range, change the snare. Okay, let's see. Let's see what we have going on here. John?
I think I'll make it easy to stay. My standards aren't too hard to meet, but some things really matter to me. I memorized the lines on your face. It took a couple years to read. Now you're an open book to me. Lines we cross turn out differently from the way we wanted it to be. But it doesn't have to change a thing. Just a single breath, a moment that we shared alone. So impulsive, just like we've always been. It don't have to ruin such a good thing. Just a single breath doesn't mean you have to go. I can always be the friend that you need. It don't have to ruin such a good thing. All the times you stole my breath, wishful thoughts that flood my head. Little things.
All right, John. A cool tune. Very cool tune. I love the mood. I love the movement of the synths. It seems like when the chorus hits in particular, I feel like I want it to go more like this. I wish I had more of a push, a real nice low end kind of openness. The overall thing too, I'm wondering if it wouldn't benefit from a little presence or a little just top end, just something to open up and give it a nice little halo. I think you're doing a great work in the mid range and in all that detail, which is by far the most important thing you should be kind of worrying about at this point. But I think if you work the low end a little bit more and see if you can find a way to get it to just push and to give it a little bit more, you know, stomach, I think that will go a long way to really opening up the record. Those two things, thinking about the low end and the top end at this point. Let me just spin it a little bit more and see if there's anything else I can kind of think of.
But it doesn't have to change a thing. Just a single breath, a moment that we shared alone. So impulsive, just like we've always been. It don't have to ruin such a single breath, a moment that we shared alone. So impulsive, just like we've always been. It don't have to ruin such a good thing.
Okay, and so definitely that thing on the low end, maybe the bass could be louder as well. At the very end there where that guitar is coming in, you can make that guitar more of an event. It feels kind of flat right now. What happens if you take it and if you run it through a chorus or you run it through some type of delay that gives it some type of motion? those kinds of things might be cool. Even if it's like, maybe even a ping pong that goes left and right, or ping pong that goes kind of hard right to center, and make it a little event onto its own just on the one side. So all of those things could be really interesting. But that said, you got a great basis to work with here. Just keep pushing things, and just keep trying to get depth, and trying to get the just more open and more bottom. All right, I've repeated myself enough. So thank you, and thanks for submitting. I really appreciate it. The songs have been really, really interesting so far. So it's really encouraging to hear what people have been doing. This is really cool. All right, so Blueberry Jam by Desert Lee. Okay, instrumental. Okay, here we go. Okay, first thing, it sounds like you're using some type of band limited compression on the stereo bus. Take that crap off. Just take it off, because it's immediately making your mix thin. It's making it phasey, and it's basically kind of eating up any interest that the mix could possibly have. I hate to sound so harsh about it, but it's distracting, which is the last thing you want. So it also feels a bit bright. I'm going to play it a little bit more, and let's see what else we can talk about here. There's no low end at all. It sounds like the kick drum is super compressed. Take that crap off. Take that crap off. Go back, find the song. It feels like you're trying too hard. Again, the shirt. Don't overthink it. Think about the music. Don't think about the fact that this plugin's got a preset that says it does something, especially on the stereo bus. It definitely will affect everything as you go. So I would highly encourage you to just pull everything back, pull this crap off the stereo bus, get the mix and get the thing balanced as best you can before you start adding that stuff. And if you feel the need to put any type of band limited compression, dynamic EQ on the stereo bus, go back to your tracks and find the source of the problem. You're going to be much happier. The feel is going to be much better. And I think will really see a difference. So again, that's my 2 cents. And thanks so much for submitting. I really appreciate it. Good luck with it. All right. So we have Heaven's Son by Paul Craig. Okay, let's see what we have here. Paul.
Love broke the silence of a desolate night. Oh, heaven exhaled and gave the breathless life. And though you fell to violence, you were destined to rise. You raised me with you, open up the skies, so I can run from the darkness into the brilliant light of heaven's sun, to the Get me thrown in heaven. From the darkness into the brilliant light of heaven's sun. In the shelter of the Holy One. Jesus, you're my fortress. I run from the darkness by the power that you placed in me.
All right, Paul. Here's what I'm thinking. I think, first of all, these are going to be a little bit more production notes, I think, than sonic. Only because I think, on all music it's kind of intertwined. But I'm hearing a few things here that might help you, production-wise, that might help move the whole thing forward a bit. You have that little bass drum sound that's going on in the verses, and it doesn't feel like committed one way or the other. It feels like it's just in that spot where it's like, okay, we just, it's barely being heard. So my thought is just like, why is it there? Does it need to be there? And if it does, it should be more of an event. And it's just not. It just feels like it's this kind of weird little thud that's almost a bit of a distraction. And it's pulling me out of what's going on with the lyrics and the vocal. When the chorus comes in, it feels like there's a lot of things going on that suddenly jump up. And I get you're going for a big dynamic moment, but it feels like it's dynamic, but also limited. Like a bunch of things come in, but they're not extending the record up and down. It's not getting open. You're not getting more low end. It just feels like it's a big fight for the mid range. And then there's something harmonically or part wise that's just not speaking right. It's hold on a second. Let me see here where it is.
Into the brilliant light of heaven's sun. To the shelter of the Holy One.
Right there at 106, there's some weird kind of dangling participle of a chord or something that makes it kind of harmonically ambiguous at that point. And for me, it's a bit of a distraction. So I would look into that. The other thing is, it feels like you want more rhythmic motion in the chorus. You got that ba 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 ba, that 16th note guitar, which is cool, but nothing else is carrying that mantle or carrying that along with it. So I would look for some other element, whether it be a shaker or a hi-hat or something that might help propel the chorus a little bit more in that kind of 16th note subdivision area, because it just feels like it needs something to help bring it forward a bit more. Let me fast forward to the end and see what's going on there. So basically the same thing. Like I'm just, I think you got to look at the arrangement a bit more, and I think you just got to feel like the record just has a bit more direction. I'm half Italian, so sorry everybody with the talking with the hands, but it just helps illustrate the point a bit. So good luck with this, Paul. Keep at it. You're on a good path, definitely. So just keep thinking about the details. Okay, so now we have What Have I Been Drinking by Nyoke 34. Remote collaboration. All right. Yes, they can be a bit interesting. So let's see what you have going on here.
Lying
right. Another one that's made me smile. So thank you for that, Nayok. Couple of thoughts. It feels like, first of all, the rhythm of the vocal doesn't feel like it's sitting in with the rest of the track. And again, this is more of a production idea as opposed to it, the actual sonic. So I'm going to try and weave these two together because, again, I think they do go together. I mean, the vocal just immediately reminds me of Tom Waits. So that actually makes me laugh. And then it also makes me think that what if you approach the production of this song as if it were 3 a.m. at the end of the night after you've been having all of these drinks? Take the tempo down a lot more, have it have more swagger in the performances and everything else. I think the music would then fit the lyrics and the subject matter a little bit better. Okay, so that's one thought right there. Okay, from what you have going on right here, I think I would love to hear more cymbals. I feel like you got to find a few spots where the energy of the rhythm section really is going to propel it. And I think the cymbals are one of those areas where they could be louder and a bit more distinct. I had mentioned a little bit earlier about maybe scuffing a few things up in some way, you know, and a song like this might benefit that as well. You know, a little parallel compression on the drums or parallel compression on the whole rhythm section for that matter, and just blend it in a little bit. You know, it doesn't need to be a lot. Just bring it up until you hear it. And it might add a nice little bit of liveliness or club soundingness to the track. But keep going with it, I would say. I don't know that it's overdone. I think it's a matter of just pursuing a few other things. I'm going to fast forward in a little bit and see if I have any other comments.
What have I been drinking? Someone tell me soon. If I keep doing what I'm doing, bottle's gonna send me to my room. Yeah, what have I been drinking? Got to tell me what have I been drinking? What have I been drinking? The label on the bottle doesn't show.
All right, so it's probably the hi-hat that I'm thinking about as much as anything else. But cymbals, hi-hats in general. Are there horns that just happen there? If there are, if the horns aren't loud, they're not horns in this style of music. So I would definitely not be afraid to push that stuff up, if at all possible. So that's my whatever, 1.5 cents, 2 cents. But keep pushing it. You've got something cool here, and whether you redo it or not, just keep going forward with it, and just push things a little bit more. Don't worry about being precious with it. Have fun. It's music. If you screw up, it only sounds bad. And if you make some discoveries along the way by pushing the envelope a little bit, you're going to be better for it. So that's my 2 cents. All right. Now we're moving on to whatever version 1.2. Let's see here. Master bus processing addressed. Okay, let's see what we have going on here. Okay, I feel like this is another case of kind of stereo busitis. I'm hearing some type of band limited compression on the stereo bus. And when the chorus kicks in, when it should get to be kind of this loud event, everything is so squashed, it almost goes in the opposite effect. It's going along and the chorus feels like it comes down in level. This is not an uncommon occurrence among people that I work with. So I would definitely take a look at that. If you're getting more than a couple of dB of limiting on your mix, then you're doing too much to it, and you got to find the solution elsewhere. And then, oh, look at this, mix tank. Let's go. I'm currently logged in and reviewing your mixes. Thank you. All right. So sorry, let me just play it a little bit more. Oh, the other thought is, Arthas, is the everything sounds kind of mono. I don't feel like you're taking a lot of advantage of the stereo field. You could probably make it a little bit wider and just feel like it's a bit more, like the listener's a bit more into the record as opposed to it feeling like it's so far in front. Let me play it from here again.
You might wanna twist it just a little bit. You won't bring me down. You can't stop me now. You won't bring me down.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's like an artificial kind of presence to it as well. I would really take a look at what you have on the stereo bus and go back and make sure all the sounds are speaking. This is something I run into with a lot of my students, where there's a lot of plugins on things, but they're not really thinking about sounds. So I would encourage you to think about how it's all integrating together and getting things more. But keep moving forward with it, and don't give up on it. I mean, we all have to put the work in, and so just keep going. You'll get it sorted. So thanks for submitting that. Okay. Oh, my screen redrew. So I lost my place. Thank you, Puremix.
You're welcome.
So crap, where was I, Mark?
Remember the specific one.
It was whatever 1.2, but that ended up at the top somehow. So
I know the first one you'd started with was about 4 hours ago, when we started at 2:30.
okay. All right, I Love Women, The Best Thing. That one I did that one, did that one, did that one, did that one. Okay, have I done this glitter one yet? All right.
Let's give that a shot.
This is where I am then, I believe. Yep. Or did I do this one already? No. Okay, here we
Let
go.
you know if I recognize it.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll probably recognize the song though too. I'm not that hard on everybody. I do listen, I swear, and I'm taking notes. You can see. All right, here we go.
Everyone else has left now. I bet that this got you stressed out. Wondering what can we do now? Maybe let it burn out. Where I can't feel my face. Mine's twisted in weird ways. Wondering what can we do now? Maybe let it burn out. Glitter sparkling on your heart now. Darling, won't you stay? I'm here wondering what to should stay here with me. Let's just make it our own party. Stick together like glitter, 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 glitter. Race against the sunlight, wanna have a long night. Night mysteries, night mysteries. Under spotlight, don't let me out of your sight. Two energies, two energies.
All right. Joe, thanks for your submission. Cool song. You got this kind of retro-ish kind of vibe going with the rhythm section. Here I am stating the obvious, so sorry about that. First thing that got me was the vocal sound and the S's. And these are the bane of a lot of mixers' existence, myself included. So I would take a look at that and see if there's a way that you can control them a little bit better. Sometimes it's finding a notch in the upper mids that you can just literally take out. Sometimes it's actually using a de-esser. Sometimes it's a combination of both. I would suggest if you are using a de-esser and if you're finding the detection zone, you know, a lot of these de-essers have little areas that you can narrow in and say, this is where it's going to detect. Open it up wider than you think it needs to be. I find that to be very helpful with setting up de-essers. The background vocals seem a bit loud to me when they come in. It feels like they're kind of pasted on later and not part of the whole mix. That guitar part that comes in between verses, I think that should be more of an event. I mean, here it is. It's like this solo. It's this transition into a whole different thing. You can add some effect to it. You can do something and play around and have some fun with it. It seems like kind of a playful song. I would take advantage of that. Also, just for fun, I would try getting a drum balance that you like and a drum level, and then put the vocal in and get the vocal in where you want it to be, and then bring everything else in and make sure you can hear everything else. I'm wondering if the vocal got put in a little bit later, because it feels like it's just sitting on top, and it feels like it could all be a bit more cohesive and a bit more put together and have a bit more of a focused point of view. So that's my 2 cents, and I'm going to stop saying that phrase. But I think it's, you know, you're definitely onto something. I think if you just look at these couple of areas, the mix will really open up for you. So good luck with that. Okay, here's a song called "Lost Without You" by Close Kicks. And let's see here.
Am I someone that I can understand? Or could it be that I've played the wrong hand? We've built it up, can't let it burn to the ground. This house ain't a home without you. Am I wasting time standing on the wrong side? Rivers turn to ocean tides, calm as days go by. Oh, there'll be clarity. Maybe then you'll see that I'm lost without you. I'm lost, I'm scared.
All right. I love the mood of this tune. I think there's a couple of things you have to look at though. The vocal seems a bit thin. Like I wish it had more chest, because what's happening here is you have this cool guitar part going on that's on the verge of too much compression. And I think when we get into the second half of the song, it actually is too compressed. but it feels like it's competing with the vocal instead of serving the vocal. So I would look at maybe adding a little bit more chest somehow to it. Is it a little too brittle? Maybe. It's kind of right on the verge of that to me. When the drums come in, they don't feel like much of, and I think you could actually help the arrangement of the song by making them a little bit more of an event. And it doesn't need to be, that doesn't mean they need to be this big splash. You've got a bass drum on there that it just feels like it could take a little bit more prominent role, especially in the low end. You know, records develop in volume and they also develop tonally up and down. I've been referring to this a lot today, but it's really true. Um, you know, so you have this vote, the song kind of goes along, and then suddenly you can get to this point where maybe the low end gets a little bit bigger, right? And then that's when that bass drum and the drums come in. And then as you're going, once the whole band comes in, then it fills out even more. Um, because once the bass comes in, it's a really welcome relief to feel that low end. I want to hear it sooner in the song. Um, so don't be afraid to turn it up and to add some low end to it and see if that kind of helps your cause. Um, Again, the guitars in that second half seemed like it got really compressed, that acoustic, to the point where it just became unmusical. And then the last thing I was noticing, it sounded like there was some claps or something, and then, but they feel so distant. It's almost a distraction. It's like you got to go, why are they there? If they're not meant to be heard, um, you know, there's this thing is it's like, oh, it's meant to be felt, not to be heard. Well, a lot of times that's an excuse for some other thing. I'm more of the Motorhead philosophy of everything louder than everything else, right? You should be able to hear everything. And then the last thing, it sounded like there were a couple of toms that came in, but and they're like, my guess would be is they were an overdub. They weren't meant to be part of the kit. And if that's the case, then make them a little bit more of an event, make them a new thing, and don't be afraid to kind of, you know, wrench on it a little bit to turn it into something that makes it that kind of event that enhances the whole thing and just doesn't become a distraction. So so those are my thoughts, but keep at it. I really like the tune. I really like the vocal performance. I think there's some really cool stuff going on here. So yeah, don't be disheartened by my nitpickiness. Just keep at it. You're gonna get somewhere with it for sure. All right, so now we have Outracane. Okay.
We have a question in the audience here. So Alex Uren is asking if you would please talk more about average to peak ratio, what you think is good, and how to achieve it. Thanks.
Okay.
Do you want to address that at all?
Yeah, I will. I will definitely. Let me make sure I'm queued up here. Okay, so yes, I have a meter going, as you guys can see, which is kind of my favorite, this Blue Cat. And so my preference when I'm mixing is to kind of make sure that my peak level is basically getting to the peak. I like using this the K14 scale. And for me personally, my goal is to get to peaks. So basically my limiter that I have on my mix bus, I'm getting maybe 2 or 3 dB at the loudest points. So this way I know I'm getting full scale resolution, but I'm also not backing myself into a corner with mastering later on or anything else. But what I am doing is I'm preserving the feel of my record, which to me is the paramount importance. So that said, depending on the type of music it is, for most pop, for most rock, for most things with drums in it, I'm looking at an average level on the CAT scale of like +4 to +6 at the maximum. You know, so anywhere from +2 to maybe +5. Let's say that is the safe area. And then when the thing gets mastered, or when I master it, I usually end up, you know, at around +8 or so. So when I do mastering, I try to get it to that point where I feel like I can get it loud enough and not losing the dimensionality. Because that's the hardest thing about a mix from my perspective, is trying to feel like it has some roundness and depth and you can hear into it. So hopefully these guidelines will help you kind of get it into that ballpark. I don't subscribe to trying to fit a format. I think that if you make your mix bulletproof, it will work in those other formats. I think I had mentioned this a little bit earlier before, try not to look at the meters and conform yourself to the meters. Use the meter as a guide, but don't use it as the king. You're the king. Your sound is the king. And so if you make your record as good as you can make it, if it feels good and it has a healthy level, that's okay. If it feels good and it doesn't have a healthy level, that's okay too. But some of this comes down to workflow, some of it just comes down to experience, obviously, and things like that. But I think if you stay within those parameters, just those couple of things, don't hit the limiter too hard on the back end, and look for problems in your mix. Don't look for them and try and fix them with your stereo bus. I think you'll go a long way with that. All right, so on to this outro Kane song. Let's see what we have going on. Okay, I'm going up into the tune. Okay, so it feels a bit kind of one note through the whole thing. And what I mean by that is it feels like it's just kind of in this area. I really wish it had more in this area. Sorry, let me be a little bit more descriptive. It just feels like it has a really kind of hard focused kind of mid-range. And there also is a bit of this fluorescent kind of quality, band limited compression, or one of those things that is supposedly making your mix sound like another mix, or calculating 1 million EQ changes per second because it can. And I think that can be really detrimental. I wish this thing had more interest in the depth department. There's some cool things going on the outside and in the stereo, but the main core, the main kind of solid foundation of it, it doesn't feel like it's kind of moving me forward. And I think in music like this, I think that's kind of the key. You almost kind of set up the trance, or you set up the pulse with your basic elements, and then you get your highlights, you get your kind of interest, or your other kind of, the little oh wow moments through these other things that are going on. So I would work on the bass track a bit more and see if you can just really get it pumping, and try and do it without the assistance of something that's gonna kill your mix a bit farther down at the end of the chain. So that is That's what I'm thinking. Thanks for submitting, definitely. All right, so now we have a song called Subject by Daniel Siebert. And let's see what we have here. I think there are a lot of really good ideas on this track, Daniel. I think what you should keep an eye on are actually the performances a bit more. If the bass and the drums sounded a bit more together, it reminds me of this band, The Fix, from the 80s. I don't know if that's what you were going for or not, but there are some similarities to it, which I think, are cool. Sonically it sits in a defined space, which I think is cool. It sounds like it has a point of view, which is cool. But I'm wondering if you tightened up some of the performances, if it wouldn't just really elevate the entire song. I'm talking about like the drums and the bass, and in particular, it just seems like they could be kind of focused in a little bit more. And because when they're really kind of locked and when they're really working together, and by locked I don't necessarily mean on top of each other, but if they're grooving together, it's just going to elevate the whole song, and it's going to bring the listener's attention to the vocal and to those other areas. So I would definitely take a look at that. But overall the whole feel of it is I think it's good, and it has a point of view. Let me forward toward the end and just give it another little bit. Yeah, I think that's basically it. I mean, if you wanted to put a tambourine or something in the chorus that was kind of eighth notey, that took over from the hat, just so that you keep a little presence and a little something going on, that's probably not a bad idea either. But carry on. You're yeah, it's for all my criticisms, you're on a path, so definitely stick with it. Okay, next we have something called Make Yourself at Home. And this is from Ryan Mondak. All right, let's give this a listen and see where you are.
All depressed, baby, I've been missing your kissing, calling up your phone to see if you're alone. I can't stand this distance, come here this instant. I've been counting down the days, so tell me what's your ETA. Hurry, please, don't make me floor when we were alone. You can make yourself at home.
Yeah, I like this mix a lot. It sounds like the vocal is slightly essy, but it sounds like it could be taken care of just with finding the right frequency and maybe just notching it out a little, as opposed to putting a de-esser on it. Or if you have a de-esser on it already, maybe just put a little EQ after it and just notch out a fairly narrow Q in an area that's just a little bit present. The tones all sound good. The vocal sound is good. The way it's all put together, I think, is all really good as well. Let me just skip a little bit farther back.
I've been counting down the days, so tell me what's your ETA. Hurry, please, don't make me wait, 'cause those on the floor.
Other than that, I think you've done a really, really good job here. Nothing that mastering couldn't kind of tweak into place and just kind of, put a little sheen on it. But yeah, nice one. Really nice work. All right. And then we have QMN from Lindana.
Qual motivo, nego? Qual motivo, nego? Sonhos ou segredo que te faz cantar? Qual motivo, nego? Qual motivo, nego? Não foge da luta, é de arrepiar. Qual motivo, nego? Qual motivo, nego? Sonhos ou segredo que te faz cantar? Da luta é de admirar.
Qual é a inspiração? A voz, a razão. João curte meu som. Rap é pancadão.
Okay, I think I'm hearing some type of thing on the stereo bus again that's kind of dipping a frequency area, and I think it's doing you a really big disservice to your mix. It feels like the whole thing is just kind of jittering, and that was my first reaction when I heard it, and it really didn't go away. So I would really consider ripping that off and never looking at it again. As you can see, there's also a theme, everybody, if you're still with me, about this. Using band limited compression on the stereo bus, it's most of the time, it's not a good idea. So with that being said, if you take that thing off and then just kind of, I would think about compressing the vocals a little bit more so that they don't quite jump quite as much dynamically, and not a lot, maybe just a couple of dB just to get them to sit a little bit more together. And I think that those two things will get you a long way to making some progress on the mix. So thanks for submitting that. All right, so now I have a song called Motivation by Bassett LA or Bassett La. Okay, track for theater play. Let's see what we got going on here. I like this, and I like where it's going. Something's a little phasey in the track, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but something like pushing and pulling in a weird way. And again, it may be something on the stereo bus. It may be something with the way the one of the stereo instruments was recorded. I would definitely check that out. But the feel of it is really good. The tones seem really good. You know, depending on the not depending, but the instrumentation seems nice. The dynamics are really nice too. So I would just kind of look into whatever it is that might be doing that kind of pulling thing in a weird way. So good luck. All right, The Penniless Wild by Super Ale. Super Ale? Sorry if I'm butchering your name. All right, let's see what we got here.
Well, I've been acting 3 feet small, just trying to understand it all. And you've been acting 10 feet tall, running past me when I learned to crawl. Enjoy the disposition till I hit the wall. Come a little closer, I don't bite hard anymore.
All right. I think overall it feels like it's together. The lead vocal, especially in the verse, seems like it's really like a bit over compressed. It's putting kind of a tone onto the vocal that isn't really engaging. If there's less compression, I might feel a bit more invited into the vocal and the vocal sound. And I'm just not getting that at the moment. I'm feeling like it's kind of like it's trying to grab me by the throat instead of saying, come here and listen to me. It seems like it works okay in the chorus just because there's some other stuff and the vocal's lower in level. And it's kind of punching through a little bit more that way. But I don't know that it needs as much in the verse. Let me skip into the tune a little bit. The overall mix might be too compressed as well. Those tom hits in particular, you would want those to be events, and they feel like they're just little kind of flicks because they're just getting caught in something along the way. So whether you have a drum sub and the compression on that, or it's your stereo bus, something's eating up those toms. And it would be a nice event to have, just an extra bit of like dynamic input, for the listener. that it's just I think you're losing an opportunity there. So I would take a look at those couple of things. And like I said, the average level feels like it's a little hot. So I'm wondering if if you open up the compression on the track a little bit, if it'll just breathe a little bit more. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So good luck with it, and yeah, try those things out, see if they work for you. All right, so now we have a song called "Tear You Up," and
Awesome.
I hear Mark.
Yes. So before you go into this one, just wanted to point out we've been at it for a little while here. It's almost about 4:00 Eastern.
Okay.
So I wanted to check in with you, see how you're doing.
I'm
And
doing good. I mean, I can do another, another, 4, maybe 4 or 5.
awesome.
I mean,
Yeah.
as long as people are into it. Are there any other questions that have come up that are we should look into, or?
Nothing super specific that I saw, but I'll look for some now. If you guys, everybody watching on YouTube, if you want to drop any questions that you might have for John in the comments, and then we can hit those when we come back on after a
Yeah.
couple mixes.
Okay.
Awesome. All right.
All right.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll
So
talk
I'll
to you
just,
in a few.
yeah, maybe we'll get up to this this Valo. Yeah, it's probably, I don't even want to tell you. I don't even want to guess.
Do it.
No, I can't.
Cool.
I can't. Probably some beautiful song, and
Yes.
so we'll get. So yeah,
Awesome.
so we'll go at least that far, Mark. Maybe we'll check in there and
Okay.
see how. If that's
Sounds
cool.
good.
All right.
All right. Talk to you in a few.
Yep. All right. So wow, that's a lot of thinking right there, my friend Andrew J. But it's good. All right, here we go.
Maybe it's cruel to love you, but I can't seem to help myself. Ever since you walked down my street, I feel so twisted up inside. I've been a cruel endeavor to anyone that has crossed my path. I'll do you the sweetest favor, knowing me tear you up inside. I've been a fool to love you, and you've been a fool to need me.
All right. Well, I wouldn't quite call this a mix yet. It feels like you're kind of still working a few things out. I wonder. I mean, my first thought is, what happens if you just take that drum machine thing and put it right in the middle, so that it doesn't feel like there's this big lopsided bass just on one side. It becomes more exaggerated in headphones, obviously. And then the other thought is, well, if you move that to the center, what happens if you throw the vocal off to the side? That might be kind of cool with some effect on it or some kind of a thing. I don't know if you're planning on adding more parts to it or what. It doesn't feel. It just feels like it needs a bit more of a point of view, and having those drums where they are, it's more of a distraction. It's like all I'm thinking about is I have this thing pumping in the side of my head, and I'm not listening to the vocal, and that's the worst place you want to be with a mix. You want the listener to focus on the key elements of the song, and the key element 99% of the time is the vocal and the lyrics. So I would encourage you to kind of fool around with that, and especially as you add overdubs, make sure everything you do enhances the tune. All right, so now we have a song called "Invisible." Let's see, and this is SW. I like that handle. or seventh chords. I love the vibe of this. I think it's cool. I wish I could understand the lyrics and the vocals a bit more. They feel a bit thin, and I think if they had a little bit more size, they would come forward, and I'd be a little bit more engaged in the words. It's probably a combination of them being it needs a little more like chest and low end, and there may be something in the upper mids that you may need to look at just with the I keep going like this, but you know that sound that happens when you rub your fingers together and you hear it, whatever that frequency is, find that in those vocals and try and maybe dip it a little bit. And I think if you do that, the vocal will be more intelligible, and you'll still have the vibe of the whole thing. You won't lose that in the process. But yeah, I like it. It's cool. It's kind of dreamy, and I think there's some cool stuff there. So keep going with it, 100%. All right. So now we have something called Wet Paint. All right, jazz. We'll take it. All right, I think you're off to a really good start here. I would think about this from a perspective point of view. How do I want to feel? How do I want the listener to feel? When I do more jazz-oriented records, I always want to feel like I'm in the audience of a performance. And so some of the things that means to me is that I want to localize things in a specific place. So example, like the drums right now, you have the overheads panned really wide, you have the toms kind of wide, and you might be better off if you focus those things a little bit more towards the center, don't pan them as wide. I would also work the sounds, milk the most you can out of the tones of all the instruments. Make them sound as good as you can before you try and do anything later on, or before you later on in the chain, stereo bus-ish kind of stuff. I think you're off to a good start. Again, I'd mentioned this earlier about performances. Make sure the things are grooving, make sure things feel good together. And those little details and those little tweaks are going to go a long way to get you where you want to go. But I think you're off to a really good start here. But think about perspective, think about point of view, and what that sounds like to you from, say you were sitting in the front row of a club watching this band. Close your eyes and maybe try doing a mix, imagining those things. What do you hear around you? What do you hear behind you? What do you hear coming from the stage? If you start thinking about things in that way, I think you'll come up with a couple of creative solutions to get to that point. So that's what I would go with. So good luck with that. Okay, so now we have a song called Back on Earth. Okay. This one, it's been mastered already. So, well, let's see.
Hey, you came to take
okay, and now I can't seem to stay on the ground. Instead of seeing streets, the world is round. I'm trying to get back on earth to breathe the air, gravity to hold me there. Keep from heading towards the sun and orbiting the only one. Passing through the clouds, I notice that my breathing's getting loud. I see the lights that define our...
Okay. I feel a little it's hard to comment on a mix when it's already been mastered, because I don't know what I don't know what the mastering engineer did versus what the mix sounded like in the first place. So I mean, I could just give, you know, just a couple of general comments. Like it seems like it's a little thick in the lower mids for my taste. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't a decision made somewhere along the way. You know, I wish the vocal was a bit more stronger in the performance end of it. That's the one thing I keep hearing, and I just keep wishing it had a bit more. If I say conviction, sometimes that means people sing louder. It just feels like it needs to just feel a little bit more connection. And what I mean by that is connected with your instrument. When I work with singers like this, sometimes I recommend that they find a coach who can help them just get themselves up to that next level. And I'm not saying this is bad, so please don't take this the wrong way. But I think if I were going to look for something to improve, I would say, you know, there are some voice teachers out there who could just give you a couple of tips and ideas, and if you put a little time into it, you can really, I think you'd really be able to step up the game and really step up the, you know, the performance of it. So that's kind of what I'm thinking on that one. All right, and then now we have a little Italian here, Daniele Bazzani. Sorry, I even almost said your name wrong, Daniele. Sorry about that. All right, so let's see what we have going on here.
Sono tempi di ingiustizia globale, tutti fermi per restare a guardare, non si muove neanche un soffio di vento sul cuore, desolati ce ne stiamo da soli ore, 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 ore. Non ne faccio una questione morale. Io non penso.
Okay. Actually, let me skip. See if I can find a chorus or somewhere where a fiddle might be playing.
Vivere di amare barriere.
Okay. My two main thoughts, I like the way it feels. I think it does feel really good. The vocal doesn't feel like it's working with the rest of the track. It feels like it's a little too, it's like it's a little too big. So I would look at finding ways with EQ to make it feel like it's fitting more in with the band. There was a guitar part that came in right before I stopped the first time that has some modulation on it and some pitch bend. it may be a little too much. Like it feels like it almost is a little just a little distracting because it's almost a little seasick for lack of a better way to put it. So sorry about that, Daniele. But that's kind of what I'm hearing. But the feel is good. I like the way it comes at you. I think that's all really in a good place. So I would just look at the vocal as more than anything else and just see if we can get it, in place and to sit a little bit more. All right, so now we're on to this. Okay, wondering about the vocal sound from Bonerges. Maybe I got that pronunciation right. I'm not even going to attempt the song title. Sorry. But let's see. Let's see what we have.
On pihapiiri istutettu puu. Se juurtui maahan, sinen kaareutuu. On tammi nähnyt sen ikkunoista. Makeutta huokuhuoneen avaruus. Ja säteet auringon ristin viirteet toista on läsnä. Ylösnousemus ja ikuisuus. On perustukset tehty lujan graniittiin.
Okay. Couple of things. The vocal sound. There's definitely a few issues that I think you should really address. It's super compressed. There's a lot of mouth noises, clicks, pops, things like that. If you're not going to re-sing this vocal, there are tools that will definitely help you with the clicks and the pops. Isotope makes this set of tools called RX that are amazing for fixing stuff like this. Like I don't mix without them because I always find some little thing that I want to take care of. If the vocal is recorded with that much compression, and if you're boxed into a corner, I would almost encourage you to re-sing it, because undoing a vocal that compressed it's really difficult to do. I mean, there are ways to do it, but it's a lot of work, and it's a big process to go through to get it there. And then when that chorus comes in, there's some stuff coming in the low end that's kind of swamping everything else. It doesn't. When I get mixes like that from people, I get the feeling that they're not hearing the really low stuff coming out of their speakers. So they're kind of making adjustments kind of blind, not really knowing what they're hearing. So so those are my main thoughts. It's just the vocal sound and the amount of compression on it. It's just distracting at this point. I'm just not really kind of engaged in the song at all. And that's kind of the opposite of what we want to try to do as mixers. So I would really encourage you to dive into that vocal and see what you can do with it. So that's my thought on that one. And then I hear Mark.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good.
This has been amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Yeah.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
People are having a great time in the chat room, and I don't know if you've noticed on your scroll bar on the screen, there have been quite a few submitted while you've been live.
Okay.
So, there's this, unfortunately, guys, John has a lot of actual mixing to do too, so he's got to get back to work at some point, and we wish that we could get to all of these, but we just can't. But we're gonna actually talk internally about how we might be able to improve the submission process for you guys. There was some pretty useful and productive comments in the chat about how we might do that. So we'll take a look at that. And
Okay.
Thank you everybody for submitting your mixes.
Yeah, thank you. And honestly, I'll keep the headphones on, and maybe I'll do some once we're done, maybe I'll just write a couple of comments as we go, because I don't want anybody to feel like they got left out. So it looks like the last submission we have in is Polvo de Estrellas.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go that far with the comments, and then this way, if anybody's listening who put one in, I'll at least try and give a couple of thoughts. If that's cool. Yeah, no, my pleasure.
Awesome.
My pleasure.
Cool. And I did want to take a minute to let everybody know too that if you either want to go further with John on this or talk to him, you have a amazing service called Mix Therapy, of which I am also a student of, a very proud student of, and it's a great thing because it's very much like what we're doing right now, where you Zoom with John, and I know like with our lesson, I'll broadcast you my Pro Tools screen, and then we'll kind of go through my mix, and you pointed out stuff for me to kind of focus on, and it's been extremely useful and stuff that I carried with me to every mix ever since. But I'll let you talk for a second about all
no,
that.
That's kind of it. You know, the whole point is to kind of help people to find their footing. You know, we get so lost in all of this stuff, and we read so many things on the internet, but trying to find something that applies to you and then also allows you to find your own voice in the process, it can be a bit tricky. So I kind of started doing this. Mark was kind of like the impetus of it all a few years ago. And so it's a great way to help people. It's a great way to help people kind of navigate their way through some of these things. And you know, when I point out a few things, it seems like bells go off, and I hear improvements in people. So it's been great. I have students from all over the world. One of them posted today, my friend from Italy, and so yeah, I you know, it is something that I do. It's something I enjoy, and I have the Mix-Therapy site, mix-therapy.com, if you want to look into it some more.
Awesome. Yeah, it's like this on steroids, so definitely check it out. So, cool. Well, we had a bunch of questions from the chat. Do you want to hit some of those? Do you have a minute?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, great. So our first one comes from Eric Giordina, and he says, "What's John's two-bus chain usually? No multi-band compression, I suppose."
Good. It sunk in. Thank you. I usually have some type of compressor that's set really light, like 1.5 to 1, 2 to 1, depending on the song. I've been using a lot this Elysia compressor, and then also an SSL sometimes as well. Then I usually go into an ATR 102 that I have a preset for that I really like. And then beyond that, it's usually some type of EQ, something broad, you know, like a Bax EQ. And then I've been using the Ozone Maximizer on the back end, Classic 4, I think it is, or IRC 4 in classic mode. Maybe that's what it is. And that's really what I end up using on the chain. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Right along those same lines, Yutsav Gosh asks, how about using a linear multiband on the two-bus? So on that
linear multiband. Okay, so linear fades. You have to be careful with the low end on those. There's a great Fab Filter has a really great explanation of why you need to be careful with those in certain applications. Here's what happens with me with the dynamic EQ thing on the stereo bus. I hear it. I feel like I hear the areas around the crossover point. Some companies, it's more notorious, it's more noticeable than others. And I'm not saying I never use it, because I do use it sometimes when I'm mastering, because I have to. But I try to avoid it on a stereo mix, because usually the solution is somewhere way farther back in the mix. You're trying to put a Band-Aid on something that's a bigger gaping hole than you need to. So that's why I really encourage people to avoid it, because I think it really does mess with your mix. And I've had mastering engineers. I had a guy one time who mastered a record for me, and I heard it immediately. And his response was, "You heard that? The meter was barely moving." And I was just like, "Well, yeah." So he had to redo it. There was no way I was going to accept it. So he took it off. And it's a good exercise for you there too, listening. If you, listen for these things, because they do exist. These artifacts are there. And this is something that I've gone through with a lot of people I've done my lessons with. It's just pointing it out. Here's A, here's B, check it out, see what it's doing. And, Mark's nodding his head, because we've had a few discussions about this as well. And
you also ruined Spotify for me.
Well,
I don't know about ruined, but
I didn't have to ruin it. It was already but that's a whole other topic. So that's, sorry, it's a long-winded answer to your question. But thank you for the question.
Yeah. Awesome. This next one is from Andrew Ships. He wants to know, how tall are you?
I'm 6 foot, of course.
Yeah.
5. Well, yes. Thank you.
That, of course, is from Andrew Sheps. If you haven't seen it, you have to go check out Between Two Shures with Andrew and John. It's hilarious, and that joke will make more sense.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you for your question, Andrew. Okay, next one is from Marty Lang, and he asks, should your power be in a different rack from your interface or preamp?
Your power be in a different rack from your interface and your preamp. You mean the
your actual electricity?
Okay, so like your barrier strip. As long as you're using shielded cables, you're probably okay. If you're using unbalanced or unshielded cables going into your interface, I would say be wary of that. The place where it's most critical is the mic pre, because that's where the largest amount of gain is going on in any recording system, right? You're taking some minuscule little voltage and you're blasting it up to a point that's usable out in the real world. So the easy way to test is put up a mic and, crank up the mic pre. If you're hearing buzzes, hums, weird things, then maybe it's something for you to look into, and then you can take it out of the rack and put it some other place. And sometimes it only needs to be a few feet away. And then the other thing is that to minimize it, you want to make sure that if your audio cables have to cross power cables, do them at a 90-degree angle. Don't do them parallel, because a generated electric field from the power cable, if you go parallel, it'll generate the length of the wire. So you have more surface area, or more area that it could possibly affect it. If you go across, it's only going to, the potential will only be on a small area of the entire wire, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely.
And then plus it'll be in a direction that's hopefully, that won't interfere as much by having it parallel.
Right.
Or, sorry, perpendicular.
Awesome. Good tip. Okay. Next one. This is from Nicola Lungi, and he says, for someone that is starting and is confused a lot about parallel chains, mixed bus processing effects, et cetera, what are the most basic steps to mind or to start with?
Honestly, don't use them. If you're confused about it, and if you start having to think about that stuff too much, then you're caught up in the screen and you're caught up in this whole process, and you're not thinking about music and about the song. And the other thing is, do it a little at a time. I encourage most people, and I do this still to this day when I mix. I mean, there is some parallel stuff going on, but I don't use a drum bus or a bass bus or a guitar bus. I mean, it just seems like it's just not the way I think and look at music. I do like everything funneling down to a stereo bus. And maybe that's where to start. Just send everything down to a common bus, use some very light processing on the stereo bus, but more importantly, get a feel for what it is, that's actually happening with the tracks. And then as you get a little bit more time and you start to understand, then maybe add a little parallel in here or there, or that kind of a thing. And there's plenty of methods to do that. But to start off that way, you're kind of you're thinking too much. And then we're back to this T-shirt again.
I was just
right?
gonna say, yeah.
On, let me overthink this. So, that's what you want to avoid. I was working on a record one time, and the producer just kept telling the singer, "Don't think, just sing."
Mm.
And that's always kind of stuck with me. And I think that's important when you go to mix. Don't try not to get caught up in all the technical stuff a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's those are my thoughts anyway.
Yeah. And that whole thing, it kind of comes that you'll hear that moment where you're like, this mix feels like it could be a little more compressed, and then that's when you use a stereo bus compressor.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Next one is from Bonfire Vanity, and he says, we've heard a lot about excess compression today. Any tips for improving our ear when it comes to the appropriate amount or style of compression, especially in the rock guitar driven world?
Okay. The other thing I think I've talked about a bunch is what I'm calling dimensionality, right? Mm-hmm. Hearing depth in the mix. So if you're bypassing your compressor and you're turning it back on, and your mix feels like it's turned into a piece of cardboard as opposed to feeling like it's got some space around it, mm-hmm. That's your first indicator, especially with stereo bus stuff, that it's too much. The other things to think about, and I run into this I've seen this with a lot of people as well, a lot of students. If you're compressing kicks and snares and then compressing them later on in the chain, and then you're going to a drum bus and there's a compressor on that, you're killing your transients. Mm-hmm. And music has to have transients. And that's kind of what that's what gives you your dynamics, that's what gives you your energy. And so a good use of compression is to control the dynamics, or more importantly, control that ratio between a peaking sound that's got a lot of attack and the body of the sound. So if you think of compression as that, in that way as well, I think that will get you a long way to really hearing what it does. And then, man, the other great thing about every plugin is that there's a bypass button. If you're confused, bypass it. Mm-hmm. See if it sounds better, and see if you've gone astray.
Right.
And I think those are some really interesting things to look at.
Yeah.
And we can talk more about this at mixtherapy.com, mix-therapy.com.
yeah, definitely. And it being honest with yourself about that too, when you bypass it and like, this just isn't better. Let me start over. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to allow yourself to mess up. You got to allow yourself to fail, and you can't let your ego, you can't let your suppositions get in the way of what's actually going on.
Right. We have two more that I think are pretty quick. If you're good for those, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Great. Okay, so best username of the day, Snack Chapman.
All right.
Do you generally keep everything on your 2-bus when you send to a mastering engineer?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer of sending off the record the way I intend it to sound. If you mix a record and you have limiting on the record and the band approves the record and everybody loves the record, why take the limiting off for the mastering engineer? Now I'm sure there's going to be a mastering engineer that hates me for saying that, but mm-hmm. You spend all this time working on relationships. That's the whole thing about mixing, is balancing and relationships. So if you're mixing through a limiter on the back end, then that's part of your sound. So why are you going to do all of this work and do 0.3 of a dB rides or 0.3 of an EQ and blah, 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 and be in it and really hearing those differences why are you going to do all of that work, print it, and then print a separate version to send off to somebody else who doesn't hear it the same way? I would much rather, even as a mastering engineer, I would much rather get the mix that everybody approved
Mm-hmm.
than an unlimited one because somebody thought that's what I needed or wanted.
Yeah.
You know, and in doubt, send both.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, but I got to say 98% of the time when I do mastering for people, I'll use the main mix, whatever that is. And if they listen through the limiter, you know, the only thing you don't want to do is get into what I was just talking about. It's this lack of dimensionality. So if you're basically, if you're at +10 average level, you know, if you're only giving yourself 4 dB of room between average level and peak level,
Mm-hmm.
odds are your mix doesn't sound very good to begin with, or it's so over the top and overblown and that was your intent, then that's fine. But most of the time, if you're turning in mixes or if you're sending them off to mastering with 4 dB of literal headroom, you know, you should look at your process as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
there are ways around that, but there aren't very many good solutions to it at that point. And that's why there was a question earlier about the average level versus the peak level. That, you know, I think it's a healthy place, you know. And then the opposite, you know, like I said earlier, you don't want to play a numbers game. You don't want to look at a meter all day and make sure that the peaks are at minus, you know, whatever your scale is, you know. Mm-hmm. You don't want to play that game. You want it to sound like music at the end of the day.
Right.
Because that's all anybody cares about. That's all, you know.
There are a lot of video games that are way more fun than that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not why any of us do this, right? It's about the music. It's about that expression. It's about the performances and kind of the way all that fits together.
Yeah, yeah. Just one thing on that. Would you say that that's a different situation between when you put a limiter on at the beginning of your mix and you're mixing into it the whole time versus if you've done it for level, but then there's the cross section where the band may have improved the mix with the level, you know, because you were talking about if the band's approved that mix and then you send a different mix off to mastering. And
oh yeah. I mean, I always send what the artist approves. I mean, that's pretty much how I have always worked. You know, there's never really been an alternate mix. It's like you get the mix to where everybody's happy.
Yeah.
And that for me has always involved a limiter because I've had a couple of situations early on where I wasn't limiting the mix as much or at all. And things came back and the feel changed. And the feel changed enough to where I had to find a way to just to get it a little bit better.
Right.
Because that's the whole thing for me. A record's about feel. I mean, for all the technical things and all the technical knowledge I have, if it doesn't feel right, no one's going to want to hit play again.
Right. Yeah. That's great. Awesome. Okay. And last question, Musictron asks, what headphones are you using?
These are Sennheiser HD 600s. But the other important component is my headphone amp, which is the Little Labs. What's this thing called, Mark? The monitor. Yeah. Yeah. So the Little Labs monitor. I really hate working in headphones, but this really makes it worthwhile. These headphones with this headphone amp, it's been kind of a godsend. I had a situation at one point where I had to do some work remotely and I had to make critical decisions with the work. And I had these in the monitor and was really, really happy with the results.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're gonna look into this stuff, the monitor and this is a really good combination.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that recommendation for me too, because that's helped me get through a lot of quarantine. So
yeah. Great. I'm glad.
Awesome. Okay. Well, great. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much for all your time today and for taking the time to go through all these mixes. And
my pleasure. Thank you everybody for checking this out. I really do appreciate you taking the time to spend it with me, and good luck with everything. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna get somewhere. Just put in the work.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Ciao,
Bye.
ciao.